Welcome back to This is Baseball. My name is Brandon Johnson. Happy Thursday. Today's episode is going to be pretty fun. So, the Kansas City Royals are celebrating their 2015 World Series championship. It is the 10-year anniversary of that accomplishment, which is crazy to think about because it doesn't feel like it was that long ago, but it was. So during the 2025 season, the Royals are celebrating that just periodically throughout the season. If you listen to them on the radio, there's just moments that they're doing basically every day that are in celebration of that Royals team. And I was looking at the roster from about 2010 to 2015 and just looking to see who was part of that run, and there was a ton of homegrown talent, and there were a lot of players that were brought in via trade. And it got me wondering, what are the top trades in Kansas City Royals history? So I have 5 trades that I want to look at today, along with some honorable mentions that I consider some of the most impactful or best trades in Kansas City Royals history. There's obviously some big trades back in the early days of the Royals. There's some interesting trades in between 1985 and about 2010 that I'll gloss over, but obviously in that era of Kansas City Royals baseball, there was not really a lot to celebrate. So there weren't really many trades that were that impactful or that benefited the Royals in great ways. But a lot of the trades that have happened in the last 15 years, I know some of these you're going to be like, oh yeah, obviously that's on your list. But let's go ahead and get into my list of Royals trades. So at number 5, we're going to go back to 2023. June 30th, 2023, the Kansas City Royals traded Aroldis Chapman for Cole Ragans. Now, at the time of this trade, Cole Ragans was in the bullpen, but he was viewed as a starter. The Royals viewed him as a starter. This ended up being a really great trade. I'll get into the numbers here in a second, but something that the Royals were kind of doing, and a lot of teams that are in a spot where they're not competitive and they're rebuilding and they're trying to get to a point of being competitive, is they sign veteran players with almost with the intention of trading them at the deadline. So you sign a player like Aroldis Chapman, who at this point in his career was kind of at a crossroads. He had not been very effective. I believe he had just been cut by the Yankees in the prior season, had some character concerns, but Aroldis Chapman was one of the most electric closers in all of baseball. We know him for being able to throw a ridiculously insane fastball, right? So with the Royals, you bring somebody in like Aroldis Chapman, and you have a few scenarios that you're hoping happen with him. Number one is you sign him and he's great, and you're not a very competitive baseball team, but a team like the Texas Rangers is in need of a reliever, as are most competitive teams that are always looking for pitching. But you hope that somebody's interested in a Chapman and they want to give you some nice pieces back. So there's that scenario. There's scenario 2 where you sign Chapman and you're competitive and he's part of your team's success. Or there's the third scenario, which isn't what you want, is Chapman is bad and you don't get anything in return for him. But Royals got Cole Ragans in return for Aroldis Chapman, and he immediately was a positive impact on the team. Let's get into some numbers. So Cole Ragans comes to the Royals in 2023. He had made 17 appearances. He hadn't made a start in 2023 yet. Like I said, he was out of the bullpen, But he comes to the Royals and he's immediately a starter. He goes 5-2 over 12 starts. He has a 2.64 ERA and has 89 strikeouts over 71 innings pitched. So he comes into 2023 and you get to see that, he's a strikeout machine and he's going to most likely be a great starter in this league. So fast forward 2024, Cole Ragans is named the opening day starter. He has a 3.14 ERA, 186 innings, and has 223 strikeouts and is averaging 10.9 strikeouts per 9 innings. And he's an all-star that season and a top 5 Cy Young Award candidate. 2025, he is starting off kind of in the same spot. He's started 4 games so far. He has a 2.28 ERA, 23 innings pitched. He already has 34 strikeouts. So he is picking up right where he left off. Quality starts, keeping his team in the game, being a strikeout machine, and just being the ace that the Royals brought him in that they felt like he could be. They even signed him to an extension in the offseason that runs through the 2027 season. And you could say it's a little early to call this one of the top 5 trades in Major League Baseball, but last season you look at the pitching for the Royals. The pitching was, especially the starting pitching, it was a major factor in the Royals' success. You could make an argument that it was the main reason that the Royals made the playoffs, because they had phenomenal starting pitching. You had Seth Lugo right in that mix as well. You had 2 Cy Young candidate pitchers. And I think Cole Ragans is just going to continue to get better. And if you look at the Rangers side, the Rangers won a World Series in 2023. So it was 100% worth moving Cole Ragans to get Chapman and in return win a World Series. And now you have in Kansas City, you have Cole Ragans that looks like he's going to be a long-term part of a Royals team that is trying to build sustainable success. Now let's move on to number 4. So I weighed back and forth for this one. This going back to 2015, this was between the trade I'm about to mention and another significant trade that was a pivotal piece of the Royals' run. But I will save the one that I don't mention here for honorable mentions at the end of the episode. So number 4 is the Royals getting Ben Zobrist from the A's for Sean Manaea. So Ben Zobrist came over to the Royals at the perfect time. In fact, I feel like he completed the Royals lineup. He did a great job filling in for an injured Alex Gordon for a little bit, played left field admirably during Alex Gordon's absence. He missed 8 weeks in the back half of the season due to a left groin strain. But once Alex Gordon came back, Ben Zobrist basically became the everyday second baseman. He took over for Omar Infante, who was really one of the probably 2 negatives in the Royals lineup at the time. I think if I'm looking at it, if you really believe in WAR, there were 2 players on the 2015 Royals roster that had a negative WAR in the starting lineup, and it was Omar Infante and Alex Rios, the right fielder. So you have Ben Zobrist come in and play 59 games, have 16 doubles, 23 RBIs, and bat 284, and just get on base and be almost just in the middle of rallies all the time. And while he was here for a short time, he was, I think, a key piece to the Royals winning a championship. And while it would have been great to have somebody like Sean Manaea be on your team, because if you look at Sean Manaea, he's had a nice career. I think he had a career year in 2024 with the Mets, but that's a classic situation of you have to give up talent to get talent, and that Ben Zobrist is exactly what the Royals needed at the time. And that is why I'm putting him at number 4. At number 3 on my list, we got to go way back in time in Royals history. We're going back to November 30th in 1972 when the Kansas City Royals got Hal McRae in a trade with the Reds that sent Roger Nelson and Richie Scheinblum over to Cincinnati. So I think that Hal McRae, looking at the Royals of the 70s and 80s, Hal McRae kind of feels like he was maybe the heart and soul of that team. I know that somebody during that era can probably speak better to it than I can, but during his time with the Royals, he was a 3-time All-Star. He was part of the 1985 World Series championship team. He was a Silver Slugger award winner in 1982, AL RBI leader in 82 as well, and he's in the Kansas City Royals Hall of Fame. He managed the Royals for a few years as well, but spent most of his career as a player in Kansas City. Has 2,000 hits, over 1,000 RBIs at a 290 career batting average. And Hal McRae has one of the craziest highlights that you'll ever see, something that you actually will never see in today's game. In 1977, in Game 2 of the ALCS, Hal McRae is seen sliding into second base, sliding really well past second base, taking out Willie Randolph and giving Freddie Patek a chance for the Royals to score. Go look that up. It's insane. And when you look at today's game, it's something that would never fly, but it's super cool. And just straight up had no intention of being safe at second, every intention of taking out Willie Randolph and giving his team a chance to get runs on the board. At number 2 on my list, I have the Zach Greinke trade for Lorenzo Cain and Alcides Escobar. So in December of 2010, Zach Greinke decided he wanted to be part of a contender, and honestly, rightfully so. He had just won a Cy Young in 2009 and had realized that at this point in his career, the Royals were not ready to compete, and he wanted out. So the Royals traded him to the Milwaukee Brewers, got Lorenzo Cain, Alcides Escobar back in the trade. Zach Greinke went on to be in the postseason immediately with Milwaukee. They went to the National League Championship that year and then made his way over to the Angels, and then eventually with the Dodgers for a while, made a ton of money there and was in the postseason quite a bit with those teams. If you look at Alcides Escobar, he was the Royals' leadoff batter during their run. He was solid at shortstop. I was just looking. He never actually won more than one Gold Glove in Kansas City, just won one in 2015, but very reliable at getting on base. Started so many different rallies for him. I remember in the 2015 World Series Game 1, he had an inside the park home run off of, I believe, Matt Harvey. And looking over at Lorenzo Cain, I remember my dad and I went to spring training in 2012, and this was right around when all of this was starting to come together with the young core of Moose, Haas, Cain, Escobar, Salvi. And I remember my dad and I watching Lorenzo Cain, and we're like, that guy is going to be really good. And many times I make the argument that Lorenzo Cain was the best player on the Kansas City Royals during the championship era. He was an incredible defender. I still think it's a crime that he never managed to win a Gold Glove in Kansas City. I don't know if it had to do with Alex Gordon being so dominant in left field that it took votes away from Lorenzo Cain. I know Mike Trout being a center fielder in the American League had a lot to do with it, but he should have won multiple Gold Gloves in Kansas City, in my opinion. In 2015, He was a finalist for MVP. That's when you're a player in Kansas City, that is an incredible feat. He, in fact, 2 different times in his career was an MVP finalist. The other time was actually in Milwaukee, but great player. He got on base like nobody's business. He had pop, and was just a leader in the clubhouse. And it's cool to look at players like Lorenzo Cain and Alcides Escobar and go, the Royals traded Zach Greinke, one of the best pitchers of his generation at the time, and got 2 critical pieces of a championship team in that trade. Now, let's move on to what I think is the number 1 trade in Kansas City Royals history, and I think it is when Royals traded their number 1 prospect, Wil Myers, for James Shields and Wade Davis. So they had Wil Myers, who was the future, but realized that the Royals didn't have anybody that had any experience winning. They go and realize that, and they go, we need somebody that's made deep playoff runs and can be a leader for a young pitching staff at the time. And that was James Shields. So James Shields had been part of the 2008 Tampa Bay Rays. They lost in the World Series to the Phillies. Bring him over to the Royals in 2013. And in that season, he made 34 starts and had 228 innings pitched. He had a 3.15 ERA. He went 13-9. That was, the Royals went 86 and 76 that season, so they came up just short. I believe they were in contention until like the last weekend of the season that year, but him coming in was a huge part of that. Then in 2014, almost same stats. 227 innings pitched, 3.21 ERA, 34 starts again. Didn't pitch for the Royals in 2015. That was when he left. He went to San Diego. But he was here, James Shields was here long enough to kind of turn that around and get the pitching staff in a spot and get their mindset and lead them to be championship caliber team. Now, let's talk about Wade Davis, because Wade Davis, it wasn't like the Royals went out and were like, we're going to get Wade Davis too. Because Wade Davis was kind of interesting. He came up as a starter. 2012, he didn't make any starts. He was out of the bullpen. But when he came over to the Royals with James Shields, the Royals tried him out as a starter. It didn't work out very well. So they moved him into the bullpen, and in 2014 through 2016 with the Royals, you already know he was fantastic. In 2014, he had an ERA of 1 over 71 appearances. He pitched 72 innings that season, gave up 38 hits and 8 earned runs. So absolutely incredible. This was when he was the setup man, if you remember the HDH era, the 7th, 8th, and 9th innings of a Royals game in 2014. It was, as long as our starters can go 6 innings, we know that our bullpen is going to get us to the end. So let's get to the 7th with a lead, and we feel like we can put a bow on this game. And they did the same thing in 2015. 2015, he was even better. He had 69 appearances, an ERA of .94, 67 innings pitched, and just incredible. He ended up being the closer for an injured Greg Holland down the stretch, ended up having 17 of his own saves, and struck out Wilmer Flores with a fastball in the inside corner, looking to win the World Series. So I think as important as James Shields was for the Royals to kind of help get their mindset and their pitching staff turned around, Wade Davis ended up being even more important for somebody that when he came over, it felt like, oh yeah, you can have Wade Davis too. And he ended up being phenomenal. Part of a historic bullpen with Kelvin Herrera, Greg Holland, Wade Davis, and then Luke Hochevar at points as well. Now looking at Will Myers spent only 2 seasons with the Tampa Bay Rays. He ended up being Rookie of the Year in 2013. But between 2014 and 2015, he was traded to the Padres, where he spent most of his career. He had a nice career. He hasn't played since 2023. That was with Cincinnati, but was a part, same with Eric Hosmer. He was a part of kind of a resurgence in success for the San Diego Padres. Got a nice contract in San Diego as well. But same with like Sean Manaea. I think if the Royals had to do it all over again, they would trade Sean Manaea for Ben Zobrist. They would trade Will Myers for James Shields and Wade Davis. So you look at those, you look at their careers and go, yeah, they would have been nice pieces to a Royals team. But when you win a championship, you pretty much can ignore all of the what ifs and just be extremely happy for a championship, because as a small market team that the Kansas City Royals are, the odds of them winning a championship, history will tell you, are very small. There's a lot of small market teams that get there, but a lot of them don't actually win the thing, and a lot of teams that actually do get there don't lose and then immediately come back the following year. It's usually just, we made it, and then that's the end of it. So what the Royals had built with these trades was super unique, and all of them were worth it. Now, before we get out of here, I do have some honorable mentions that I want to go over. One of them is actually a worthy honorable mention. One of them is just for fun. But the Brandon Finnegan trade for Johnny Cueto. If you remember Brandon Finnegan, the Royals drafted him in 2014 and called him up to be part of the 2014 postseason team. So you went from pitching in the College World Series to pitching in the Major League World Series all in 1 year, which is a feat on its own. But 2015, Royals needed pitching. Cincinnati had pitching. They went out, got Johnny Cueto. And the reason that he didn't make the top 5 is because when I look at his stats for the regular season with the Royals, it wasn't all that impressive. He went 4-7 over 13 starts with a 4.76 ERA, but he was great in the postseason and made this trade absolutely worth it. In that, he made 2 starts during the ALDS with a 3.86 ERA, 14 innings pitched in. He made 1 start in the ALCS, did not go well. He only pitched 2 innings there against the Toronto Blue Jays, but he made 1 start in the World Series, and it was a complete game. He gave up 2 hits and 1 run over those 9 innings. That was in Game 2 of the World Series. So, again, fantastic in the postseason, but honorable mention just because I remember in the regular season being a little bit frustrated with him, but he made it all worth it in the postseason. Now, my final honorable mention, again, this had really no impact on the success of the Royals, but in June of 2004, the Royals traded Carlos Beltran for Mark Teahen and John Buck. And the reason that I'm bringing this up is because I watched so much Royals baseball, bad Royals baseball in the 2000s. I remember Mark Teahen and John Buck super well. I think outside of Mike Sweeney, John Buck was probably my first favorite player that I had. And a lot of that had to do with, he was the first player that I ever got an autograph from. I remember going to a game with a friend and John Buck was standing in the dugout, and I gave him my hat. He signed it, and I was like, he's the coolest guy ever. So just an honorable mention there just for the fun of it. But those were my top 5 trades in Kansas City Royals history. Thank you so much for listening today. I will see you next week.